First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. As always, thank you for joining us. We are live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, but also on our website and apps. A great way to find all the programming that we get to cover here. We start every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific, and today we've got something special here for this segment. In case you didn't know, America's Most Wanted, the longtime iconic show which attempts to catch fugitives from justice all over the country and even the world, is back. In its second season for the reboot, it is now hosted by Joe Walsh, of course, the creator of the show, and his son, Callahan. So Callahan Walsh joining it as co-host for this season. And I was able to actually have a conversation with Callahan earlier today to talk about the return of the show, talk about the mission that they have behind it and some of the things that go into it, some very serious things that they do in order to track down these fugitives and try to bring justice, or at least some sense of closure or peace to the people who are trying to find all of these individuals. So we talk all about that and some more. So I just want to jump right into it. Here it is, Callahan Walsh on Fox 12 Now. Callahan, thank you very much for joining us here today. Really, really appreciate that. And I think just to start off, America's Most Wanted, season 2 here out. And how does it feel to have this show on the air and to be working with your dad in such a close way as co-hosts on this version of it?
It's incredible. I think now is the perfect time for America's Most Wanted to come back. I was young enough where I grew up on set when my father hosted the original run of America's Most Wanted. It was on Fox for 25 years, and it was on there long enough to where I actually wound up working on the show as a producer towards its tail end. In no way did I ever imagine I'd be in front of the camera with my father in a reboot of America's Most Wanted, but here we are. I'm incredibly honored. Of course, I have huge, gigantic shoes to fill. But I watched my parents, both my mother and my father, channel their emotion and their anger over what happened to my brother Adam. My brother Adam was kidnapped in 1981, and I watched my parents co-found the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, an organization that I work at today that's helped recover over 450,000 missing kids since its inception, but also watched my father go out there and capture bad guy after bad guy. And again, just incredibly honored to be able to join him in this new reboot of America's Most Wanted. We've got incredible cases and looking for some incredible captures as well.
I mean, the amount of resilience that took to after, with what happened with your brother, to be able to go out there like your father did and do that, and for you to grow up through that show, and then, like you mentioned, start working for it and then continue that mission. What is it about that mission of America's Most Wanted and, catching these fugitives and helping out these exploited and missing children that really drew you in to make that part of your life's work as well?
Well, I come from a family of tragedy, but we celebrated Adam's life. I knew his favorite sports and movies. We celebrated his birthday, and I watched my parents channel their emotions and their anger. And they said, we need to make sure Adam didn't die in vain. They said, if Adam's song is to continue, then we must do the singing. And I watched them do that every single day. And so following in their footsteps was not something that was very difficult for me to do in a sense of, I always knew I think that's the life path that I wanted to take. I saw the incredible amount of meaningful change that my parents were able to enact because of the tragedy of Adam's disappearance. It changed laws and legislature in favor of victims. It changed the way we look for missing children in America. And it changed the way we harness the public to get captures, to hunt down wanted fugitives. I think that little hole left in all of our hearts by Adam's disappearance is filled in little by the missing children we're able to recover and by the justice we're able to get families that are so desperate for it.
Well, you mentioned that harnessing the public, which obviously America's Most Wanted does so very well. But what is it about this show, do you think, that makes it so effective in bringing justice to some of these cases and catching some of these fugitives?
Well, oftentimes America's Most Wanted becomes the court of last resort. These investigations have hit a dead end, have hit a wall, and the investigators are looking for any little piece of information that could crack the case wide open. And oftentimes it's the public that holds the key that unlocks the door to justice. And so harnessing the power of the public, shining a white hot spotlight on these wanted fugitives and giving the public an avenue, a way for them to fight back. Not everybody wants to call the cops, unfortunately. Not everybody wants to be, drawn into a court case, especially if it's their cousin or neighbor that is the wanted fugitive. And so we give the public an ability to do the right thing, to give us that information. We don't care who you are. We don't care where you are. You can remain anonymous. We just need that information. We turn that over to law enforcement with agencies that we work with, both local, state, and federal agencies, and we get some incredible takedowns. And look, I don't play Major League Baseball, but I'd say every capture that we get is better than hitting a home run or a grand slam in the World Series. It is an incredible feeling to get those captures.
Yeah, it's got to be, and to be able to speak to those families too. I would imagine, just for you on a personal level, having this be really a lot of your life's work, it's got to feel good to be able to bring that to those families. And what is that emotion like when you get to share with them, like, hey, we found this guy, we're bringing some justice here?
It's always a great feeling to reconnect with a family, because the initial touch point with that family is them having to tell you the worst thing that had happened to them in their lives. They'd lost a loved one, what have you. And so to be able to reconnect on a positive note for a resolution, a very positive resolution, that's always the best feeling in the world. To be able to look that family in the eye and say, we got him. We got the guy that harmed your loved one, that took your loved one from us. And so it really is, when we get those captures, being able to provide that to those families. Look, it took 27 years to get justice in my family, 27 years for the Hollywood police to do the right thing and get justice in Adam's case. And so we know that feeling. However, justice delayed is not justice denied. And the justice that we're able to bring these families really can help start answering a lot of the questions and help them start writing the new chapter in their life. We don't use the word, closure. There's nothing that will bring our loved ones back, but justice does provide answers and allows us to, again, write that new chapter in our lives and be able to really kind of come to terms with some of these horrible things that happen in our world. It's very unfortunate, but law and order is really tantamount, and being able to find justice for these families is just really such a great thing.
When it comes to finding these fugitives that you have there on the show that you showcase, to search for them, has the use of social media been more of a help or a hindrance when it comes to trying to apprehend some of these fugitives and get the word out and utilize the public that's watching the show?
Well, that's what's different with this reboot of America's Most Wanted. The original America's Most Wanted wasn't around really during the heyday of social media. It wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. And while the internet has created life for the better in so many ways, it has created new ways to harm children. We see that time and time again. We're seeing drug dealers sell, and post drug menus of the day on social media platforms. But it's also allowed us to harness that technology for good. And that is getting these armchair detectives, these internet sleuths together and sharing information in real time. We're able to draw up clues and pinpoint where these fugitives are faster than ever before because of the sharing of that information. So this season of America's Most Wanted is absolutely harnessing those armchair detectives for good, and they are part of our army. They're the reason that we're able to get the information that leads to these arrests, and they are our partners in this.
It really is incredible how talented some of the armchair sleuths can be in finding information that's out there. And, thankfully, some of these people who are the fugitives are posting, which, helps out a little bit on that end too, I would imagine. Something I wanted to ask you, talking about the missing and exploited children side of things. And I thought this might be an important question. Obviously want to get your input. What are some things that the general public can look out for when you're out there walking around? You see maybe a situation where there's an adult and a child, maybe looks suspicious, but are there telltale signs or things that you can look for to notice that and decide whether or not this is something that's an issue that's going on that should be reported?
Absolutely. During an active abduction, if you are witnessing something like that, trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, speak up and say something, because most often than not, it is our gut that's correct, and you'd much rather have trust your gut, say something, and it be de-escalated, or we find out maybe it's more innocent scenario than it seemed, than to come find out later on the news that child was being kidnapped right in front of you, and you could have done something. You could have stepped in and saved that child's life. But what's also important is talking to your kids and children that are in your life about safety and making safe and smart decisions. It's really about empowering children, because a parent can't always be there, whether it's online safety or real world safety, we know that oftentimes it's the child that's going to make that decision. We know from analyzing attempted abductions at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that over 80% of the time when a child is able to get away from their would-be abductor, it's something that they did proactively, like kicking, screaming, and drawing attention to the situation. And so, again, it's really about empowering children to identify risky situations and learn how to avoid them.
Something else that I wanted to bring up to you just on the show. I was just watching the first episode of the second season, and you have people like Elizabeth Smart on, who's clearly an advocate, a victim who has really gone out to try to prevent that from happening to other people. How important is it to have people like Elizabeth Smart and other people out there advocating and joining the show to just share their stories?
Elizabeth Smart's voice is a powerful voice in the advocacy space for missing and exploited children. She's an incredible partner of ours at the National Center. She's done some incredible work. She's really grown into an amazing woman, has children of her own. She's just an incredible person. But those voices are so important, not only to bring awareness to these issues. Elizabeth Smart is a very well-known name, but also to add to our prevention education programs. Survivor voices, especially trafficking survivors as well, their voices are so important when it comes to creating the prevention education and the resources for long-term care. We know when children are exploited or go missing that, of course, recovery, that's the first step, but that's not the end of that story. There's a long road to recovery. And so being able to provide ongoing services for these individuals is incredibly informed by survivor voices. Every single case is different. Every single case is unique. But by listening to survivors and consulting with them, that's the way we're able to create trauma-informed resources, trauma-informed programs to help these long-term cases and provide these services to these children once they do make it back home. And being able to provide those services is really what it's all about.
It really is taking their feedback and going through what they went through to further understand, how you can help.
Absolutely.
One other thing I wanted to ask just about the show itself. I know one of the things that you advocate on there is that you can provide anonymous tips. I was wondering how that works just in the process of that, because some people, like you mentioned earlier, may not be comfortable sharing their name. Maybe they have reasons to fear, putting their name out there. So when they call in or they write in, how does that anonymity get remained?
Well, first of all, we're not police. We have trained operators answering the phone calls. Of course, we're working with local, state, and federal authorities. When good tips come in, we want to make sure those tips go right away to the proper jurisdiction so they can get a takedown or an apprehension. However, it's not cops that are answering those phone lines. It's trained operators, trained by us. We understand that not everybody wants to say who they are. Not everybody wants to call the cops. If it's a neighbor or a relative, if they're in fear of giving that information, they want to be able to remain anonymous. And that's the path that we provide to them. We guarantee anonymity. You can call us, text us, give us a tip through social media. We promise we won't ask your name. We don't care who you are, where you are. We don't even care what your status is as far as citizenship in the United States. We just need that information, and we provide that to law enforcement, and that's how we're able to take these bad guys down.
Well, Callahan, I want to thank you very much, for joining me here and just sharing your insight and your information on here. Is there anything else that you want the general public just to know? I mean, other than we'll make sure that everybody knows when America's Most Wanted is on, but beyond that, just in life to help prevent future issues like these from happening.
Well, my father always said it at the end of every show, and I believe it. You can make a difference. It can be up just to that one individual that provides that piece of information that leads to the recovery of a missing child, that leads to the capture of a wanted fugitive. You can make a difference, and through America's Most Wanted, plenty of our viewers have done that time and time again. We've made a difference in countless cases.
Well, thanks for doing what you do, and thanks for making a difference for all of those people out there who are seeking justice, and appreciate you joining me here today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, very interesting conversation there with Callahan Walsh, so appreciate his time in joining us and talking about America's Most Wanted, which does air here on KPTV, Fox 12 Oregon, so you can make sure and catch all the newest episodes right there. And thank you all for joining us again. This is Fox Fox 12 Now, which we hear air every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific is when we start. I promise I'll get it out. It's Friday, but we have more coming up here on this show as well. Coming up at 1:30 p.m., we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl, and I'm actually going to have Stacey Dales, an NFL reporter, who's going to be joining live from there. She's actually at the facility. Okay, I recorded it earlier, but she's at the facility where the 49ers are staying. So pretty interesting conversation there, talking about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and what she's expecting from the Super Bowl. We also have more on the apps and the website, so a great place to catch up with all the other program that we have. More exclusive stuff here for Fox 12 Now, so you want to hop over there and join me on that platform. That's where I'll be here for the next 15 minutes or so before we come back with Stacey. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.